What is up, my fellow hustlers? This is Elijah Bilel from the Side Hustler Society, and we have a pretty interesting episode we're going to be covering today because y'all already know I'm all for the, as they call it, the hustle culture. But some people actually have an issue with what it's kind of evolved into in terms of you always having to go, 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 get this money, and it's controversial that a lot of people are doing side hustles. They think of the gig economy like Uber and Lyft and Doordash and that kind of thing. And I'm gonna play devil's advocate in this episode and just kind of hear the other side of it because some people, like I said, have an issue with it. Some people think it's concerning to have this mentality to go, go, go. Some people think if you're doing this side hustle stuff, you'll get stuck in a quagmire and you can't find yourself out of it because you keep making money with these apps or these, quote unquote side hustles. But if you haven't addressed a few things, you're not really getting ahead. And that's actually a viewpoint I agree. In fact, that's part of the reason I started this podcast is because people need to know the difference between a side hustle that has potential to turn into a business or a trade or skill and something that literally is just going to be a side hustle. And I really want people to get more trades or skills. That way they'll have something that can serve them for the rest of their life. So with that being said, I'm actually going to have someone on the podcast. Her name is Tayler Nicole, and she's a former life coach that's turned into a sales rep who is using her opportunities and platform to transform her life and the life of others. I said platform because she is a fellow YouTuber like myself. In fact, her main channel has almost 10,000 subscribers, and she took a very different path from me. As y'all know, I've done a lot of things to make money, both trades and skills, as well as the gig economy, to get to where I'm at today. And on the other side, I have a lot to offer y'all. In her case, she's done a lot of hustles too, but she decided to go down the career path of taking those skills and going to a 9 to 5 and developing a steady career with the stereotypical, safe and secure job. And she talks about the her journey on her YouTube channel. So y'all would definitely want to check that out. We'll leave that in the show notes, and we'll mention it in the show later. But yeah, we're kind of two sides of the same coin in terms of this hustle culture, because not everyone takes a more entrepreneurial path. Some people take a more employee-based path. So we're gonna get into that. Let's go ahead and hop into the show. Real excited to hit y'all with it. Let's hit that intro.
Welcome to the Side Hustler Society podcast with your host, Elijah Bilel. This is where you can find out more about hustles that are best for you. And of course, make more money in the process. Elijah has been in the gig economy and freelance space for over 5 years and has done over 3,000 deliveries on Uber Eats. He's an Airbnb superhost, runs multiple YouTube channels, and is the author of the best-selling book, The Anatomy of Financial Success. It's his mission to empower people with the tools needed to be successful. Now, welcome your host, the king of side hustles, Elijah Bilel.
Okay, Taylor, we're officially live. Can you hear me good?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Awesome, awesome. So, my fellow hustlers, I'm real excited about this particular episode. As we covered in the intro, we're going to be talking about hustle culture because I think Taylor's a good person to have here because we're kind of mirror opposites in a way. Like she's a living proof that you can have a career and really focus on a trade or skill and make good money. And you don't necessarily always have to run and go get some kind of a side hustle because you can get caught in a quagmire if you're not careful. Versus me, y'all already know I'm the king of side hustles. I've started several things over the past few years, and I guess you could think of me kind of as a reporter. I'll tell y'all what lost money, what was not worth doing, and I show the numbers. So pretty different paths, but ultimately I would say that we're both kind of on the hustle path, even if it's kind of manifested in different ways. So that's why I'm pretty excited to have this discussion.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I've definitely had my fair share with kind of the gig economy. I just prefer something different. I don't think that is necessarily bad if you do it. But for me, I like stability and kind of having a clear trajectory of where I'm going. And so that's what a career kind of provides for me.
Indeed, indeed. So that's actually a good jumping off point because people want to know more about yourself, like what your current career is. I know you have started some things in the past, tried some things out. So why don't you tell the audience what kind of career you're in currently?
Yeah, so right now I'm in sales, particularly tech sales, as a business development representative. We're sales development representative. They kind of are interchangeable. Basically, what I do right now is I'm pretty much building our lead generation for our business for a tech company. So I'm making cold calls. And I'm getting meetings booked for them to look at our product and hopefully decide to buy it.
Hmm. Okay. So the sales skills is good to have regardless of what you're doing. It's a pretty malleable skill. Obviously you can go in the freelancing field if you want, or you can go into business for yourself. But a lot of people kind of overlook that skill set is the literally the backbone of most businesses, and employees that have that skill set should not be undervalued. So I already did a show on selling. So I'll just refer back to that. I know people be like, Elijah, don't turn the show into a sales show. You already did that. We're not going to do that. I'm just going to say it's a valuable skill set and it's pretty malleable too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, if you want to be an entrepreneur in any sense, selling is a really is a big part of that. It is like almost the business in a sense. So
Right. So yeah, you mentioned you've had some experience with various side hustles yourself, yeah, either while you're in your current career or even before then. So could you elaborate on that? Like, what kind of side hustles did you get into before you decided that you prefer the stability that a career has to offer?
yeah, yeah. So I tried doing Doordash. Um, I tried Lyft. I also, I don't know if I would call it a side hustle, but it kind of was. It wasn't like it was my full blown full time business, but I was doing also life coaching. I didn't really like that as a business model to build on. And so, I mean, kind of after going through those things and kind of just testing out, well, what would be fit for me. Um, I decided that I really needed to pivot into a lucrative career. And then, obviously, leverage that money to kind of build out what I would want to do outside of work and turn into a business.
Hmm. Okay. So I guess that's a good time to ask this question. But how do you feel about the gig economy, like the whole Uber, Lyft, DoorDash? We're not talking about. Some people lump this in here, like Fiverr and Upwork, where you do work on there. To me, they're in two categories because, I mean, no disrespect. Everyone that knows my background, I come from the gig economy, delivering food with Uber Eats, rideshare, that kind of thing. But it does fall under the category of unskilled labor, versus if you're on Fiverr or Upwork, you have a skill, so you're literally skilled labor. But we're talking about the apps, DoorDash, Lyft, Uber, that kind of thing. How do you feel about the gig economy and people kind of jumping into this gig economy and making money, and they get kind of caught up in this, you could say, this toxic hustle culture that people talk about nowadays?
Yeah. So, like I said before, I don't necessarily have anything against the gig economy, but I do realize the major flaw in it. If somebody decides that, oh, this is just what I'm going to do, right? I'm just going to, DoorDash, Uber, Lyft, or whatever it is that you choose to do. Um, I think the major flaw is the fact that it's not skilled labor. right? And skills pay the bills. So at some point, there's only so far you can go without any skills. Like there's only so far you can go without any skills, without, being able to have the ability to problem solve, without having the ability to plan and time management, and without having the ability to maybe sell or market or whatever it is. Like there's only so far you can go with the gig economy. And that's, you know, my major concern with it, especially for our younger generation, right? People, they want to just be content creators and they just want to, I'm just going to DoorDash and I'm going to be a content creator. And that's great because creating content can develop into a really good skill. But I think that a lot of people do not go into it with that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people don't go into the gig economy with the right mindset. Like when I was doing it, it was never something I wanted to do full time. Like when I was transitioning from like customer service to sales, I actually had to quit my customer service job because I could not work that job and also and also try to, apply for tech sales positions. It just was not, the schedule was conflicting. And so I had to quit my job and I started lifting until I was able to pivot into tech because I had more control over my schedule and being able to take interviews and things like that. And so it should be something you leverage to get you to somewhere else. That's the way I see it. I don't think that is something you should just really bank on because God forbid your car breaks down. God forbid they stop accepting drivers or something. I've had that happen where I tried to log on DoorDash and they're like, yeah, no, we don't have any shifts available. We don't have anything available. Stuff like that happens. And so it's not dependable. It's not stable. It's not something that can really truly bring you stability because there's just, so much, that could go wrong. And if it does go wrong, it'll put you in a really bad position financially. And so, like I said, don't have anything against it, but I think people should be careful not to fully depend on that as their game plan and really just leverage it as it should be to get them to their ultimate goal.
Mm-hmm. Just in case people forgot, during the pandemic, how can I put this? During the pandemic, DoorDash and specifically DoorDash, the company you just mentioned, you mentioned like maybe there wouldn't be any shifts available, which is possible. But during the pandemic, there's so many people applying to be drivers because everyone got sent home because they couldn't work. But DoorDash and like all food delivery was considered essential work. So people got on there like, oh well, in addition to getting my PPP loan money and EDIL money, well, let me go out and do some DoorDash and whatnot. And they took as many people as they could, but then they just straight up say, hey, we got too many dashers out here. You can join the wait list.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always, that could happen. I think people talk about this all the time, but if you piss them off for whatever reason, they deactivate you. That's pretty much it with all of these companies. I think Uber and Lyft are starting to get a little better, but even still, you're at their mercy.
Yeah.
So imagine doing this full time and you just have your income instantly cut off like that. That's kind of problematic. And a lot of people would say, well, I'm on a bunch of apps. True, but it's kind of like putting a Band-Aid on a wound without like addressing the true problem. A lot of people, like you say, go into it with the mindset of, hey, I'm just going to do this full time. And they're not thinking about their future. Like when I first became an Uber driver and then it extended to Uber Eats, it always had a game plan attached to it. It wasn't meant to build a YouTube channel on top of that. But once that was done, the YouTube channel was built. Okay, it's going to pivot to personal finance content. And then the money from the personal finance content would finance real estate. And that's literally what happened. But I went into it with a game plan. And I was only full time for like maybe 9 months before all this started to take place. A lot of people will get put in the position where they need to get on these apps. And then they stay in this survival mode where, well, at least my bills are getting paid. And I don't want to really think about anything going forward. And then something bad happens. And car breaks down, they get deactivated, whatever, and they're put in a position that if they plan it out, they wouldn't be put in such a compromising position, I'll say.
Yeah, no, that's true. That was one of my biggest concerns when I was lifting. I didn't lift for that long because I was just like, I only have one car and I don't want to buy another car. I don't want to wear this car out, buy another car, especially with interest rate. That's just a bad investment overall. And that will cost me more money than I am making right now. So, that's always, you always have to be thinking about long term. Yeah, short term, sure, you can make you a few $100 in a day. Great. What is that costing you in the future, though? You may lose thousands of dollars years from now because your car gets ran down earlier than what it should be, the life of your car. And now you have to buy a new car. And now you have to take out another loan. And interest rates are crazy. And so now that you made $300 short term, but it costs you thousands of dollars to replace your car. And if you don't have the same rates that you had when you purchased your car, and so it's like you always have to be thinking about long term, how much is this going to um cost me? Like it's like it's the gig economy to me is kind of like a quick fix, right? Like,
Mhm.
you stop by fast food because you don't want to cook and you don't feel like grocery shopping. Cool, great. Like you get that fulfillment, you're full, you ate your food, and it was going to cost you too much time right now to go and buy groceries and cook. But how much is it costing you health wise to keep consuming fast food every time you feel like it's just the most convenient or you don't want to inconvenience yourself with cooking? Like we have to think about what are the long-term effects of our decisions before we commit to them.
Right. And I would love to get your view on this, but I kind of see the gig economy as what is it? The law of diminishing returns? Because the way I see it, anything less than a year, well, let's say less than 6 months, I think the benefits outweigh the cons that we're talking about. Because you're put in a situation where you need to quick money. You can make quick money in the gig economy, or let's say you're not making quick money. Let's just say you want a side hustle. So you're Ubering, you're Lyfting, you're doing a food delivery. 6 months, I think the benefits far outweigh the cons. But when you get into like 6 months to a year, that's when they kind of are balanced, cons and pros. But anything past a year, I think that's when the cons start to manifest themselves. And we talked about full time, but let's talk about part time for a sec, because some people will say, "Well, I just want to make an extra $300 to $500 a month. I'm not doing this full time. I just want that consistent money on a regular basis. So I'll just do the gig economy part time." I think the cons start to get bigger even if you're doing it part time, because you obviously need that money in your budget. Otherwise, you wouldn't keep doing it.
Mhm.
And you have the opportunity to develop some kind of skill or trade, like a video editing, graphic designer, or getting your plumbing license, or getting some kind of trade that you can use to generate that money via freelancing. But the gig economy is providing the illusion of, hey, this is just going to be money that's always here when something could happen. Versus if you go get a trader skill, that trader skill is yours. Even if you don't get a quote unquote second job with it, you can start freelancing or contracting and make money that way. And that's going to always be a skill you can use going forward. Versus the gig economy, we've already talked about why that might not be the case. Would you, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with you. You know, we have to the whole point of like what your whole mission is about financial freedom, right? And so to me, being financially free means you're not always selling your time. You're not always selling your time because that's not free. Like you're not really free if you're constantly having to sell your time. And there's no way to scale because you only have so much time. So you can only sell so much of it, right? And so even part-time, great. If you need to do that for a few months because you're behind, you need to pay off some debt, you need to, whatever. There should be a purpose behind it. There should be some type of end goal, right? So you can stop doing it and this is not something you're doing every year, you say, okay, once I pay my debts off, I'm good. I don't need to be in the gig economy anymore. Or once I do this, or once I do that, right? So there should be a end goal in mind, even if you're doing it part-time, because even part-time, that's your time. That's your time. And that's time taking away from, well, what's the real issue? Why are you not where you want to be financially? Right. And oftentimes it's rooted back to you don't have a skill that is in demand. You don't have the right relationships that you've built with people. That's another thing that I don't like about the gig economy, even if you're doing it part-time. If you're working 40 hours plus week in the gig economy, what time do you have to build relationships with people? Because that's where true success is made. What time do you have to think about your gifts and your talents? And to, I think that sometimes the gig economy is used as a way to distract ourselves from thinking about something to create. Right. I'm learning just in my own journey that the best way to solve your own problems is to figure out how to solve somebody else's. But that requires thinking, and that requires time, and that requires innovation, which you don't get to do that when you're spending 10 to 20 plus hours a week outside of your full-time job, in the gig economy. Right. And so even for part-time, there needs to be a point where you say, okay, after this, no more, because now I really need to focus on myself, and I really need to figure out how can I either gain a skill, right, or how can I create something that's going to make somebody else's life better, because that's where I'm going to make money, right? And so, I think that there has to be an end goal, even if you're doing it part time.
Now, I will say this: as far as the relationship building, 100% true for the grocery shopping, the food delivery. I will say though, as a rideshare driver, it takes intentionality. And you already should have a trader skill if you're going to be doing this, or something to offer. So maybe after you've started that business, or after you've gained that trader skill, this works. But if you go into it with the intention of, I'll just say this: I've gotten a lot of clients back in the day when I was in network marketing and selling health and wellness products. I did get a lot of sales just from doing rideshare, but I went into it with the intention of doing that. So if you have something to offer in that instance, rideshare can be a conduit to build some relationships, but you have to go into it with that mindset.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I 100% agree with that. I've met some pretty interesting people while lifting. And some of them were
I'm pretty sure that the word interesting goes in a few different directions, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. It can be interesting good, it can be interesting bad. It can be interesting where you're like, I actually don't know what to think about that. I can't even really calculate what just happened and what they just said. So there's definitely ways to leverage your ride share, but like you said, you have to be having that mindset. You have to already know what value you have to offer in doing that.
Right. So you had brought this up a few minutes ago, and you touched on this in one of your videos. And for everyone that's wondering, we will leave a link to our YouTube channel in the description, show notes, and the pinned comment. But what's your opinion on people starting a side hustle? And it doesn't have to be a gig economy; it could really be anything, but a side hustle to pay off debt or get out of debt. Because I remember you had some things to say that some people might think are controversial, but they're also pretty practical.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, I I think that I don't really think that having a side hustle is the best route to take as far as long term. Like, I think what I described in my video was like there's a difference between a side hustle and like building a business on the side. Like, I'm all for building a business on the side because some of the wealthiest people in our world, they leverage their corporate positions, and they took that money and they invested it into building stuff like Tesla or Amazon or whatever, these big tech companies or companies in general. a lot of them have corporate backgrounds where they were in high paying positions, and they just leverage that to build out what their vision or their passion or whatever it was they wanted to build. And so I believe that's like I don't want to say it's the best route, but I would say that's the most practical, because I know everybody's journey is different, right? And so I think it's the most practical route, and it's the one that guarantees the most success, um, as far as building a successful, sustainable business that's going to, retire you from your full-time job, right? Um, Now, with side hustles, the way I see side hustles is like it's this kind of almost like a continuation of the rat race with no end. It's like no end in mind, right? It's like, oh, I'm going to work for somebody, and then I'm going to also do some more work, and just to make some more extra money. And then you're like, I'm good. You have to keep doing that work to keep that money coming in. And so I it's like, at what point do do we say, okay, well, maybe I should turn this side hustle into, take it more seriously, turn it into a business. Maybe I can turn this into something that I can offer people and sell it, and or something like that. But I just, like I said, I think that when you just have a side hustle and it's just a side hustle, that it really takes away from you building something valuable that could serve other people and that you can actually make a lot of money from. And so that was kind of my thing with side hustles, is that it can turn into this, you're just continuing the rat race. I don't believe that we live to just work. I believe that, it's a part of our lives. We should work. You should work hard. But it shouldn't be your whole life. Like, at some point, you should be enjoying your life. You should be able to go on a vacation. You should be able to take trips with your family or whatever it is. Because I don't like being like completely controlled, like, by money, right? Everything is just about money, money, money. And I feel like sometimes the side hustle culture, it's just all about money. And I don't, I just, that's not the way I want to live, and I don't think that's the way we're supposed to live as human beings. And so that's kind of my thoughts on it.
Okay. Would you say, and you would know more about this than me, but here's how I see it. Sometimes if you actually audit your situation, I'm gonna get into finances in a sec. But if you look at your situation, you might jump into a side hustle, whether it be the gig economy, or it may actually be you're gonna go get some kind of trader skill. But maybe you should stop and think, is that really the best thing? Because depending on what field you're in, you might do better to get some kind of certification, an additional certification, and that may actually qualify you to get paid more or qualify you for a higher position at your main job, so that you can just eventually get a pay raise or just move on to a higher position and make the money you would have been making with your current job in addition to the side hustle, but you do it in the 40 hours that you've been doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the best way to go. Like, if I, like, for example, if I was still like a customer service rep, with the way inflation is going and prices of everything has raised, I would probably have to resort to doing, multiple jobs. And so that's why it's so important to build very valuable skill sets and learn I believe there's a system of value that we have in our world. The more value you give people, the more money you make. The more you become valuable, the more money you attract. And so it's like, we have to find ways to make ourselves valuable to other people. And one of those ways is to have a skill that other people need. And so, yeah, like, I think the best way is to really find a good skill set, hone in on it, learn it, like, go ahead and like, it's gonna suck, like, learning a new skill. Like, I do not, I've only been in sales a little bit over a year. Obviously, there's so much work I still have to do as a salesperson to become really, really good. compared to somebody who may have been in for 10 years and they kind of is like second nature to them now. And so build a skill set that becomes almost second nature to you, where it's like you mastered it. And, once you have that, like really, as depending on the skill, I mean, with sales, the sky is the limit. You get unlimited commission, right? But depending on the skill, like, I mean, you can easily be making over 100,000, 200,000 just because you're really good at what you do. And so now you don't have to hustle when you're very, very skilled, because now you can kind of go and it's almost like the power is in your hands with some of these companies too, because you may have a skill that it's hard for them to hire. It's hard for them to find somebody that's really skilled the way you are. And so yeah, I think that's one of the best routes to go when it comes to getting out of the survival mode and the hustle culture, is really finding a skill that suits you and just honing in on it and mastering it.
Right. And I'll revisit this point because we were talking about the debt. I remember in one of your videos, you kind of spoke about, you didn't use this term, but this is what I took from it, performing a financial audit before you go get a side hustle. Like a lot of times you have cash flow that is invisible to you because you're spending it on frivolous stuff. So if you
Yeah.
cut back on a few things, you may not even need to get the side hustle to start with. Like, how many times I visit Starbucks I guess every week. It's like, oh, well, yeah, it turns out I'm there every single morning. How much am I spending? Oh, $5 to $10. Like, before you know it, like you look at monthly, like, oh, wait, maybe I don't need to get a side hustle. What if I just reduce that to once a week and I'm probably going to be fine, for example?
Absolutely. I think you should do that, but I also think too, you need to assess what type of life do you want to live. There's some things in my stuff I'm like, I don't want to cut that out of my budget. I want to be able to afford to buy that every single day if I want to. You know what I mean? Because I like it that much. Or like you have to, what kind of life do you want to live? Like we all have to make sacrifices. So yes, budgeting, cutting things out of your budget is very important. Not spending money on frivolous things is very important, but you also have to, you're still human and you still have desires, and your desires matter. What you want matters. And so you also need to, while you're doing that, and say, okay, I know for now this is something I need to cut down because I honestly I can't afford it, but how can I start affording this? Right? Like, you
Mm-hmm.
know, how can I afford this? Right. And I think that's a good mindset to get into, to really help you to level your finances up, and to get into an abundant mindset. Is, I remember working for a real estate company where we were managing HOA properties, and we had like this portfolio, and it was like a house that was like $500,000. And one of my coworkers was like, I would never be able to afford something like that. And I just thought, why? Why would you never be able to afford that? To me, 500,000 is not that much, right? It's not that much when you have people out here that have $18 million mansions. What is $500,000, right? And so it's like, getting into that mindset instead of saying, I can't afford that. Well, maybe right now I can't afford it, but how can I start affording to live this life that I want to live? If I want to buy a mega mansion, right? What do I need to do to get that? Like, like having that balance between the two of, yeah, I need to save, but I also don't want to live a life that's so frugal that I'm no longer enjoying my life because I'm just trying to like cut all my expenses, right? And so having
Mm-hmm.
that, yeah, I may have a sacrifices for a season, but at some point I want to afford these things again. How do I do that? And so kind of having that balance between the two.
Right. Audience for the visual, for people watching on YouTube, you probably saw me looking back in my bookshelf. You're wondering, what is Elijah looking at? I was actually pulling one of Robert Kiyosaki's book. It's called Before You Quit Your Job, but not in this book, but his original book, Rich Dad Poor Dad. He spoke about how his rich dad instilled this lesson upon him. He said, when you say the words "I can't afford it," it's mental laziness because your brain shuts off. If you ask yourself how can you afford it, then you can start to actually come up with ways on how you can afford it. just saying you can't afford it is a way of being mentally lazy. And
Yeah.
when I first heard that, I was kind of baffled. Like, well, that's true. Even if you're not in a position where like you could say, well, I don't have the money and I don't have the skills yet. If you just ask that question, your brain will start trying to figure out ways. Ideas will start popping. Like it literally will turn your brain on towards the concept of, well, how can I actually make that pop off? Let's see. But if you say you can't afford it, like that's the end of it. The brain shuts off. And your
Yeah,
emotions shut off too.
absolutely. Your mind is so powerful, when you look at our world and look at all the things that's been created just by humans. Like you look at stuff and you're like, wow, how did this huge thing become what it was? And it all started with somebody's thinking, their thoughts, right? And so it's, you are the only person that hears everything that you say. So when you're speaking and you're saying stuff and you're coming into agreement with things that is not even in alignment with the truth, because the truth is you're human, you were born with the ability to create, and in all honesty you can create whatever you want to create. It's not a matter of if you can create it, it's a matter of how are you going to get there, and if you really want to do it, are you willing to pay the price that it costs to create something so big? Are you willing to do that and go through the process? For most people that's no, they're not willing to do it, so they resort to, oh, I can't afford it, oh, that seems too much, that's too hard. Like, I've had people who ask me how, I want to break into tech, but is it going to be easy, or it seems like it'd be too hard. It's like, who cares? Do you want to do it or not? Like, there was never really a question when I was transitioning into my career, man, I wonder how hard is it going to be? I don't care. I'm going to do it, right? It's going to get done. I know I can do it. It's just a process of me going through the process, whatever it takes. And so it is a form of mental laziness when you say I can't, because you're literally giving up on yourself. You're literally giving up on yourself instead of asking yourself, like you said, how can I afford it? And telling yourself stuff too, telling yourself, I'm going to be able to afford this house, by next year, or in 5 years from now, I'm going to be able to buy a $1 million house. You just saying that out loud, your brain picks up on that gets stored in your subconscious. And now your mind starts to generate ideas on how can we actually buy $1 million house in 5 years. And so it's like, it's very powerful and it's very true.
Indeed. So we've actually talked a lot about the side hustle side and to some degree the business side. But let's pivot a little into the world of employees, because this is an area where you would have more to say to me. Some people, they really need this elaboration, because as long as they're working, they feel like, okay, I'm doing just fine. But a lot of people, they don't know the difference between a job and a career. So in your opinion, what's the difference between a job and a career?
Yeah, I feel like a job is the acronym from job is just over broke. So, you're just making it. You got something that helps you pay the bills, if even that, right? And it's a dead end, right? It's not something that I would say that is like, oh yeah, you can definitely take this skill and maybe turn it into a business, or you can even stay in you know you can even stay within this job and grow and become, um, I don't know, whatever it is that you have in mind. But I feel like a career offers you the ability to gain a skill, learn business, and be able to gain skills that can transfer into multiple things later on down the line. Like a job is like a cashier at McDonald's, right? Or you're on the assembly line and you're like putting a part on like a car or something like that. Like that's a job. Like it doesn't take skills. That doesn't require you to think. It doesn't require you to know the business. It just requires you to show up and do your job, right? Where with careers, like for example, in sales, you know, I don't get to just show up and like do one thing and then go home. Like I actually have to learn our product. I need to know our competitors. I need to know our customers and our prospects and what their pain points are and what they need. I need to know how to speak and communicate with them in a way that they understand. I need to know their language, and I need to kind of know their business, right? And so it requires me to have kind of a higher level of skill set, higher level of insight that it can be transferred into, whatever I want to do, later on in life, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I feel like with careers, there, it's not, careers doesn't necessarily mean that you're never going to get laid off or you're never going to be without a job, but with sales specifically, um, you can get laid off in tech sales, and you can find another company to go with because businesses are always going to be selling, right? Everybody money needs to continue to be generated. So yeah, I think those are like the main differences between the job. A job is like, you got something that pays the bills. A career is like, oh, you can like actually turn this into something. I think a perfect example is like when people um like become like, for example, going back to like sales, you sell and you have 10 years experience. Now you get hired by corporate companies to come and train their sales teams, right? You can't really do that with a job, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. So you could. So there's kind of like a common thread, and it's real small, but if you got laser vision, you can like see it between like a job and like the trade and skill that you can build a business with.
Yeah.
Like it's very a lot of people just like put a career in the category of just strictly employee, and they'll put like trader skill strictly in the category of like freelancing. But there really is a thin line where like, hey, they're both in that same level. It's almost like a career is the employee version of the trader skill, and then people, if you're not going to be employed, you have a trader skill, then people will just call you a freelancer.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there is a thin line, and I also think the person's mindset has to come into play as well. Because there are instances where a job can turn into a career and then turn into, whatever else you wanted to turn into. Like, for example, if you work like at Taco Bell and then you get promoted to shift manager, then you get promoted to store manager, then you get promoted to regional store manager, then you get promoted to director of operations. Now you turned something that was a job into like, oh, I'm overseeing like 15 stores now. I know the business. And so it depends on the mindset of the person too. Do you mind starting like with a job and then saying, hey, maybe I actually want to turn this into a career and do this, for my career. And so it depends also on the person's mind and how they look at it. Somebody might look at my job and say, this is just a job, this is not a career, because they don't like it. That's not what they want to do. It's just for them, it's just to pay the bills. They don't care about the skills that they're learning. They don't plan on doing anything with the skills they're learning. And so it depends on the person's perspective as well.
Just hearing you say that takes me back to my Amazon days when I was an employee. Started out, just on the floor. Then I got promoted to a PA, and the person above me was going to be area manager. And I saw that he practically lived in that place. And we used to joke that I would come in, I'd be like, "So, where's the mattress?" He's like, "Huh? There's got to be a mattress in the corner because I doubt you went home last night." Because I mean, as a PA, I had to be there 30 minutes early and sometimes leave 30 minutes late. And he was there before me and after me. So I kind of saw, I saw the hierarchy. It would have been area manager, then ops manager. Then I just decided that I don't want to live in there. So the ceiling was met in terms of work-life balance for me. That the highest I was going to get to is going to be a PA. That there was opportunities to rise higher. I had the confidence I could do it, but I didn't want to.
Yeah, no. Yeah, that's you have to think about what works for you. Like, not everybody wants to climb the ladder. I certainly don't care to climb the ladder in my sales position. I want to get to a closing position, and then I'm like, I don't think I want to be a manager. I don't think I want to be VP of sales, because now, like, the company is your life at that point, right? And so, like, I can be an individual contributor and still make a very good amount. I can still make $200,000 as a individual contributor. That's good enough for me. I don't need to oversee everything. I don't need to live here. I have, desires outside of my career that I want to build on. And yeah, like, you just have to, there's nothing wrong with if you do want to climb the ladder, but it just depends on your desires and what you want out of life.
Mm-hmm. And that requires you to sit down and actually figure that stuff out.
Absolutely.
Cool. Yeah, I can definitely respect that. So I would ask, and we'll start winding down in a little while, but your answer to this may actually be something you've already said. But I was gonna ask, what do you feel is the worst thing about the current state, the current like hustle culture that's out there? You have kind of elaborated on that already, but did you have any additional comments you wanted to put out there? Do you feel like the audience would want to hear?
Yeah. I think I pretty much covered everything, but like I said, you have to kind of be able to have a little bit of, I don't know if the word I'm looking for is prescient, but you have to be able to know where we're going in the world. Like, you have to be able to look at things now and say, where is everything going as far as economy, as far as jobs, as far as careers? Where's it
Or
going?
AI, which some people have a phobia of.
Yeah, you have to, like, a lot of people completely want to avoid AI because, like, it's here, it's not going anywhere, it's only going to continue to grow. At some point, you got to ask yourself, am I going to be okay as AI advances? Am I in a career that's recession proof? Am I in a career or a job that, they're creating cars, little robot cars that deliver stuff now. I saw a video of a car it was a little robot car with some food in it. It delivered it. The guy had to put like a little code in to open it up and get his food. And then the car took off. Nobody was in it, right? Is the side hustles, the gig economy, going to be sustainable for you, right? So there's a shift happening as far as financially, skill set wise, and those who are unskilled are going to be at the bottom of the bottom. So if you don't have a skill, if you don't have a business, if you're not doing something that's adding massive value to the market and to people's lives, you're going to be eating the crumbs of everybody else who's at the top, right? And so it's something to think about. Do I need to pivot, and maybe I need to learn how to code? Maybe I need to learn how to uh, manage people. I don't know. But you need to do something, right? You have to think about your future. You have to think about where the world is going and how can you position yourself to make sure that you're not going to be the person who's getting the breadcrumbs and trying to, really just struggling, right? How are you going to make sure you're not going to be in survival mode in these next 5 to 10 years as things continue to shift? And so those side hustles and hustle culture, that's good, for now. But in a little while, a lot of things is going to change. Some of those things are not going to be available anymore for you to even do. It's time to start thinking about what can you build in your life right now that's going to be sustainable and that's going to position you in a winning position.
Nicely put. And I will say this too. Well, it applies to the gig economy too, but especially my freelancers. I have a lot of friends that are freelancers, and people already know I was. Well, I can't say was. To some degree, I still am a freelancer. If someone makes me an offer I can't refuse, and that's happened a few times, I will do some video editing or website designs, and it's happened sometimes. So I'm gonna still call myself a freelancer. we get stuck in, I'm not going to say survival mode because a lot of freelancers move past that, but we get stuck in this hustle mode where we actually start to forget about stuff that jobs offered that did have value. One thing is jobs offer stuff that you don't have to think about is retirement. So, the stereotypical 401k, maybe some maybe even offer a Roth 401k, but we don't think about that stuff. It's just say I'm just making all this money, and I'm talking about high income earners too. Sometimes some
Yeah.
freelancers make like $100,000, $150,000 a year, but they don't even think about retirement. So uh, this can be planned out with a financial advisor. So take what I'm saying. I'm not a financial advisor, consult one, but I'm just gonna put it out there that you need to have some plan for retirement and some plan for general investments, and a percentage of your money as a freelancer or a hustler, as you will, needs to be put towards investments on a regular basis, because that is something that a job gives you an option to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely have your plans for what you're going to do when you can't work anymore. Um, I will also say to not get into the mindset of, I just want to do this until I retire. I think that it programs your mind to think that when you get to a certain age, that life is over and you just stop working. And so, this is just me personally. I think that a good goal to have in mind is to what can you create that you don't have to retire for that's going to continue to generate you money. Um, what can you do that's like, that's a goal of mine. Like I don't, obviously I don't want to work as hard as I'm working right now in my 60s, but I also don't want to just like ever be at a point where I'm just waiting to like die. So what can I create that I love to do that I know that I'm not going to get tired of, that or that's going to still add value to people's lives, and that's going to continue to help to generate income. And so like, you know, it's something to think about, you know, yeah, job offers, retirement, everything like that, but also think past retirement too. Like, what do you know what I mean? The reason I say that is because there's a lot of people I know that they thought they were going to be able to retire at 65 and they couldn't. The investments they were making like back in the 80s or whatever, and they thought, oh yeah, at this time I'm going to be able to retire and live comfortably. Prices went up, right? So it's like,
Inflation is a thing.
yeah, yeah. So they're like, I actually still need to get a job just so I can afford health insurance. I need to get a job just so I don't run out of money, because like, what if I live till I'm 95 and I only have enough money saved up for 85, right? So it's pretty wild, And so I would say think even past that to see, what can you create that's going to always bring you in money.
Cool, cool. All right, so we are getting ready to wind down the show, but I always ask my guests if they have any questions they want to hit me with, anything. But audience has banned the question of why did you start the Side Hustler Society. They've heard it 3 times. They said, Elijah, if someone asks you that again, we're going to shoot them. I wouldn't want to see you shot, Taylor. So let's not ask that question. But you got any questions you want to hit me with?
I won't ask you the question that everybody's asked you. I will say, what is like when you have left this earth, I don't want to say die, but when you have left this earth, what is the legacy that you want to leave behind? What is the thing that you want people to be able to say about you? What is the history per se? When somebody looks up, oh, what Elijah? Well, who is that? What did he do? What impact did he make? What do you want that to look like?
Ooh, a legacy question. I like that. Okay. Well, I guess for the general public, I want to leave my mark when it comes to financial education, because I feel like the school system has failed young adults specifically, but really people in general. Some people could say it's a conspiracy theory. Some people could just say it just devolved over time. Whichever one you believe, I lean closer to the conspiracy theory side. I'm just going to be honest. There's evidence to back it up. It's not a theory, but they don't give you the tools you need to succeed financially, not just when it comes to budgeting, but and this is the unique thing that I offer. There's plenty of people behind me that talk about in terms of books, that talk about the same or similar financial education. But the thing that I bring this unique to the market is really the concept of understanding your financial personality. I wrote about this in my book, but there's 6 financial personalities. And when you find out which one you are, it lays a blueprint on what are the things that you're going to struggle with when it comes to budgeting based on your emotional strengths and weaknesses, and what are the things you're good at. And just by having that knowledge and knowing that you shouldn't be dropping under 10% when it comes to your overall spending, that way you'll always be moving ahead financially. 6 categories I talk about. If you don't have a business, it's 5. It's spending money on yourself, investments, savings, expenses, and donations. You need to be spending money on those categories at all times. Even if times get rough, 10% in each category at the very least. If you can't do that, you need to make more money. And when it comes to making money, if you know your financial personality, there are certain personality types that are catered towards specific skill sets, specific careers that you can use to maximize your income based on your talents. A lot of times we get crowbarred into things that we don't have the natural skill for, so our income is just peaked by default. When if you had the knowledge of what your financial personality was, you would know that, hey, this over here has a greater ceiling for you in terms of income potential because you know your personality. That's the mark I want to leave on the financial world that I feel is severely lacking in the world. And this is something I can't blame the school system for. It's kind of semi-nuanced because I don't know where it is right now, but Sales Dogs by Blair Singer, he applies this concept and applies it to dogs, except for it's in the sales field. Yeah. That kind of inspired me to come up with something, but just for financial education in general, not just strictly sales. I think that really needs to be out there in the world. And that's what I do. That's what I want people to remember me for when I'm gone.
Absolutely. And that's inspiring that you kind of have the resources that you've created to help people with that. I don't think I've gotten your book yet, but I know like when you speaking about, I'm very like interested in kind of learning more about your thoughts and how you kind of break everything down. I definitely don't know my financial personality. So that's gonna be something that's going to bring some revelation to me and maybe help me to pivot, uh, pivot more towards that, what I'm able to find from that.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a formula that you take a test, and the test will tell you what your personality is. But me being the creator, I can kind of gauge which one. I think you might be the conservative, but you would have to take the test to be sure. But you can find out the conservative strengths and weaknesses, in the book. Another important thing is your weaknesses don't have to stay weaknesses. When you know what they are, well, there's ways you can strengthen them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Knowing your weaknesses and maybe leveraging your weaknesses. Maybe it's a weakness in one area, but if you use it in another area, it's actually a strength. And so, um, yeah, absolutely. Like that is important to kind of have that self-awareness of, self-awareness is so key when it comes to just kind of building yourself financially. You definitely need to understand who you are, your strength, your weaknesses, your goals, your purpose. That all, to me, it all ties into it.
Well, the official slogan of Financial Anatomy is learn how to take control of your financial destiny. I was tempted to use another one, and that other slogan was putting the personal in personal finance.
I mean, that's catchy because unlike a lot of the other people who talk about finance, where everybody says the same thing, like this is what you need to do, and it's like, no, that doesn't work for everybody because that's not how everybody thinks. That's not how everybody is created. So there are like obviously laws and principles to follow that works for everyone, but then there's little details within that where it's like, this may work for you and this may not work for you, you know? So it's important to be able to kind of cover all those things so people know that they have, you know, different options.
Indeed. So, Tayler, for people who want to get more of you, where can they get more of you? Feel free to plug your YouTube channel, any kind of social media you want to name drop.
Yeah. So for my social medias, for like TikTok or Instagram, it's just Tayler Mariah Nicole. On YouTube, it's Coach Tayler Nicole. I do have a second YouTube for tech, but I think I'm gonna rebrand. I know we spoke about this too. I think I'm gonna go ahead and rebrand the other channel. It's gonna be a little rough, but I think I can pull it off. But yeah, you can go on there and check it out. And yeah, I also have a LinkedIn as well. And so it's just Taylor. I think it's Taylor Jones on LinkedIn. And so yeah, those are all the places. If you want to connect with me, you can.
Okay, just so the audio listeners can pick this up, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's Taylor with an E, right?
Yeah, Taylor with an E. Yeah.
Okay. So we don't want people typing in, Taylor with an O and you don't pop up. So
right.
People on YouTube see your name spelled, so they would use that, but just for the audio listeners.
Right, exactly. They pull up Taylor Swift and like, this is definitely not her. You get Taylor Swift on your podcast? I mean,
oh, maybe I should take that statement back. Maybe go ahead and type in the normal Taylor. I'm just playing. She probably wouldn't have much to add value in this conversation anyway.
Yeah, she's like, what is a side hustle? Whatever. No, I don't do that.
Right. All right, Taylor. So we appreciate you coming on the Side Hustler Society podcast. Interesting back and forth, because a lot of people, we cover some topics that people don't actually really talk about, especially in the gig economy. And even if you are a freelancer, there's still some things that should be taken into consideration. And not everyone has to be a side hustle. Well, I mean, not everyone has to be in business for themselves. I do kind of maintain the view that everyone should be a freelancer or have the skill set to go into freelancing, just so you'll have something that's malleable, but that demands you get a trader skill. And I think that's the biggest takeaway. A trader skill can be turned into whatever you want it to be. You can work for someone, be an employee. You can be a freelancer and get your own clients, or you can literally build a business around that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree.
Yeah. So everyone, if you're watching on YouTube, if you can give us a thumbs up for that YouTube algorithm, greatly appreciate it. And don't forget to subscribe if you're new. And if you're listening to us on audio, if the platform that you're listening on has a review section, let us know your thoughts. If you can drop a review, we'd love to see anything that we can improve on or some topics that you want to see covered. We'll catch you in the next video or podcast. We'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.
This episode may be over, but your hustling journey has just started. Visit thesidehustlesociety.com to access all links and resources mentioned in the show that will help you on your hustler's journey.